Here's your homework help video for 3.4. For the first question, we're looking to simplify the expression, which is just asking us to distribute. So we'll distribute the negative 4.5 to the 6. Negative times the negative is a positive. So we'll do 4.5 times 6. 5 times 6 is 30. 6 times 4 is 24, and 3 more is 27. One digit after the decimal point. So we have positive 27. And then we'll distribute the negative 4.5 times positive 2. A negative times a positive is a negative. So we'll do 4.5 times 2. 2 times 5 is 10. 2 times 4 is 8. And one more is 9. So we take away 9, and it was times 2d. So 27 minus 2d. Find the difference. So now we're just subtracting fractions. 2/3 minus negative 5/3. A minus tells us to go left, and another minus tells us to do the opposite or turn around. So we're going right, which is addition. So we can chop. We end up with 2/3 plus 5/3, which is 7/3. Or if you wrote it as a mixed number, that would be 2 and 1/3. For question number 6, we have a similar situation where we have a minus negative. So we can chop. That just is add. And we'll want to turn 2 and 1/4 into a fraction with a common denominator of 8. We multiplied 4 times 2 to get 8, so we multiply 1 times 2. So our new expression is negative 4 and 3/8 plus 2 and 2/8. So 4, and then we take away negative 4, and we add 2. So that's negative 2. And then negative 3/8 plus 2/8 is 1/8. So we end up with negative 2 and an 8. Evaluate the expression when x is 4, y is negative 6, and z is negative 3. So I'll rewrite this. 4 times y, which is negative 6. And we're going to divide that by 2 times x, and x is 4. 4 times negative 6 is negative 24. 2 times 4 is 8. 8 goes into 24 3 times, and a negative divided by a positive is a negative. For questions 12 through 23, it says factor out the GCF, which is the greatest common factor. Factor the expression using GCF. All right, so for number 12, the greatest common factor between 9 and 21 is going to be 3. So then we think to ourselves, 3 times what gives us 9? 3 times 3 gives us 9. So 3 times 3b gives us 9b. And then we say 3 times what gives us positive 21. 3 times positive 7 gives us positive 21. For number 13, the greatest common factor that we can pull out is 16. 16 times what gives us 32z? 16 times 2 is 32, so 16 times 2z is 32z. And then 16 times what gives us negative 48? We know it's going to have to be a negative. And 16 times 3 is 48. So 16 times negative 3, that gives us negative 48. Number 14, the greatest common factor that we can pull out is 2. 2 times 4 is 8. So 2 times 4x is 8x. And 2 times 1 is 2. For number 22, the greatest common factor is 7. 7 times 3 is 21, so 7 times 3m is 21m. And then 7 times negative 7 is negative 49. So 7 times negative 7n is negative 49n. And number 23, we're finding the greatest common factor between all three of these terms. And the greatest common factor is 3. 3 times 4 is 12. To get 9g, we would multiply 3 times 3g. And then how could we get negative 30? That would be 3 times negative 10. And to get negative 30h, we would multiply 3 times negative 10h. For questions 24 through 28, we're factoring out the coefficient of the variable term. The coefficient is the number in front of the variable. So for question number 24, we're going to factor out a 1/7. 1/7 times a is 1/7 a. And then what number times 1/7 would give us 1/7? 1. For number 26, if we factor out the coefficient 3/8, 3/8 times 1d, or 3/8 times d, gives us 3/8 d. So that part is easy. But now we have to think, what can we multiply 3/8 by? So 3/8 times what is 3/4? So let's start by thinking about the fact that we don't have a common denominator. So this is actually going to be 6/8. So 3/8 times what would give us 6/8? 3/8 times 2 over 1 would give us 6/8. So we would say that that is 2. 3/8 plus d, or 3/8 times d plus 2. That one's tricky. For number 28, we are going to factor out the coefficient. So 1.5 times y is 1.5y. But again, we have to think 1.5 times what gives us -6. So what we can do here is solve for this unknown. We can divide by 1.5, divide by 1.5. 6 divided by 1.5 is just long division. Move our decimal point over, move our decimal point over. And we actually have 60 divided by 15. 15 goes into 60 4 times. And look back to this. Negative divided by a positive is a negative. So 1.5 times y minus 4 is our factored expression. For questions 38 through 41, factor out a negative number, and we are being told which number to factor out. So for 38, we're being told to factor out a negative 4. So negative 4 times what would give us negative 8d? That would be 2d, because negative 4 times 2 is negative 8. Negative 4 times what would give us positive 20? We know we're going to need a negative times a negative to get a positive. So we know that second term is going to have to be negative. And 4 times what is 20? 5. For number 40, we are going to factor out negative 0.25. So negative 0.25 times what would give us 7g? So we're going to have to do this little equation again. Negative 0.25 times something equals 7. So we'll divide by 0.25. And then we'll do, how many times does 0.25 go into 7? I don't even think we need to do long division for this one. I think we can just think about money. How many quarters go into $7? 4 quarters go into $1. So 4 times 7 is 28. So we would say this is going to be negative 28g. And then similarly, what times negative 0.25 is going to give us 3.5? We're going to divide by negative 0.25, I should say. We did that up there as well. And x is just how many times does 0.25 go into 350? 25 cents goes into 350 14 times, and a positive divided by a negative is a negative. And now finally for 41, we're going to factor out negative 1/2. So negative 1/2 times what would give us negative 1/2 x? Just x. Negative 1/2 times x is negative 1/2 x. Negative 1/2 times what would give us positive 6? So let's do negative 1/2 times what equals 6. So we want to get this question mark by itself, so we could multiply by the reciprocal. Negative 2 and 2 cancels out. 1 and negative 1, those cancel out. So then on this side, 6 times 2 is 12. And we know a negative times a positive is a negative. So we get negative 12 there. Modeling real life. A square wrestling mat has a perimeter of 12x minus 32. Explain how to use the expression to find the length in feet of the mat and justify your answer. So we have 12x minus 32 as the perimeter, and we know that perimeter is side plus side plus side plus side. That tells us there's 4 sides, so I'm going to have to factor out a 4. 4 times what is 12? 3. So 4 times 3x is 12x. So then I have to think 4 times what is negative 32? 4 times 8 is 32. So 4 times negative 8 is negative 32.